Good day, and welcome to Number Announcements Weekly Wraps. I'm Web Governor, and seeing as this is the first weekly wrap of the new year, we're going to do things a little differently. We're just going to look at what to expect in the new year, as opposed to looking at, as we usually do, big news events of the last week or so. We're still going to have a bit of a separation between general market news and AI news. So let's start off with the general market news. So this year we're going to look at a couple of things. The main thing I think that's going to determine what's going to happen in the world is what's going to be international rate policies. At the end of last year, we started to see signs that inflation was not falling as quickly as people had been hoping. We saw indications that the US Federal Reserve in particular was looking at signs from the Trump administration, the incoming Trump administration, regarding what had been happening with regards to things like tariffs, and fearing that might cause inflation to rise again, and made them believe that they may not be able to cut interest rates as aggressively as previously discussed. Now, I think the fear around inflation is real, and not just based on tariffs. We are seeing inflation fears rising also in Europe as well. We saw some recent numbers from Germany showing inflation a little higher than anticipated. And that leads me to the conclusion that we are likely to see, the yield curve this year looking a little higher than had been anticipated. That means that people are going to have higher, interest rate expectations this year than they had, last year. Doesn't mean we're going to see interest rates rise, but it could just mean that we don't see interest rates being cut as aggressively as had been hoped for. And the next thing is that in terms of what we talked about inflation and about Trump, I think the incoming Trump administration is going to be eventful, let me say that. For those of you that have not been following Trump recently, for some reason he's talking about adding Canada as the 51st state, buying Greenland, or maybe invading Greenland and conquering Greenland, taking it to Denmark, invading Panama, possibly. This is a very unusual set of events. Now, some of it is done in a very joking manner, where he discusses, Justin Trudeau, who is currently the Prime Minister of Canada, and outgoing. He's already announced he's going to resign, and calling him the Governor of Canada. There's governors in states, not in countries. He's already talked about, how he's going to add on Greenland to the US, and in some points talked about buying it, some points saying they don't want to take our money, we'll invade it. It's quite threatening, for the world's strongest superpower to talk about invading your country. And of course the Danish and of course the Europeans associated with Denmark are not very happy about this particular set of events. And he has also said some very aggressive things around Panama. Now let's look at these things individually. Canada, okay, what is he talking about there? I don't think there is any chance of an invasion of Canada or any kind of Canada being added as the 51st state. For one reason, out of many others, is that it would make the Republicans obsolete as a political party. You add in the Canadian population to the US, you add another state that's going to vote almost exclusively for the Democrats, because Canada is much more liberal than the US is. At a state of that size, it would make winning an election as a Republican virtually impossible. So for that reason, I don't think that's going to happen. But what is he trying to do? Firstly, he's trying to really pressure the Canadians using a bunch of different tactics, including tariffs and other measures, to basically go along with some of the things he wants to do, most notably around immigration, but other factors as well, including distancing themselves to some extent from the Chinese. And it's a similar kind of theme that we see in Panama as well, and in Greenland, quite frankly. Trump has a very aggressive stance in terms of the US security situation, in terms of defense, not so much in terms of aggression internationally. For instance, I don't think he would mind ending the Russia-Ukraine situation with the Ukrainians significantly worse off in that deal. But in terms of protecting the United States itself, he's got quite an aggressive stance, and he doesn't want to have any threat from the Chinese, as they are doing in terms of infrastructure investments in Panama. In the same way, he sees Greenland as a strategic enterprise with regards to a future conflict, possibly with the Chinese as well. So that's kind of what's around this. I don't think there's any chance of Canada, like I said, Greenland, on the other hand, is possible. You never know what the future could hold. But I mean, this kind of stuff has been done in the past. Louisiana was added on by buying it. Alaska was added on by buying it. He could offer every person in Greenland $1 million. Every man, woman, and child in the country, $1 million. That's a lot of money. That'll cost like $50 billion. That is not an obscene amount of money, considering the amount of money that the US has spent on helping Ukraine over the last couple of years, or what they've spent in places like Afghanistan. It would add, 50,000 or so new people, so that's not enough to change the demographics of the country. It would add a huge amount of land. If you look at a map of the world, Greenland is gigantic. It's not quite that big, but it is very big, very sparsely populated, very big, very rich in natural resources, which could be used by the US. So, that is a possibility. How it could be done politically, I don't know, but that is something that is interesting. Invading Panama, that is very possible. The US has done it in the past. But I think it's more a case of pressure, making sure that the Panamanians understand that they are not free to make the decisions they would like to make regarding who they partner with in certain deals. The same kind of stuff happened in Cuba, the Cuban Missile Crisis, where the Cubans accepted Russian, nukes in Cuba, which the Americans said no to. Obviously, there's not nukes here, but it's just an infrastructure thing. But the Panama Canal is key for the US's ability to function as an economy. If you don't have the Panama Canal and the US, or being friendly to the US, the Chinese, for instance, restricting US access to that particular waterway, the only way to get from the east coast to the west coast of the US would be going around, Argentina. It's a vastly larger, distance to travel by sea. It would be quite, negative for the US from a number of points of view, including economic and military as well. So I think, there is something there. Whether or not it is going to be something which I think is going to be, a long-term strategic endeavor by the Americans to do these things, I think it's quite possible that we are going to see more and more pressure put in Panama, and possibly even more and more links and deals being done regarding Greenland. So let's see what happens going forward. Next, in South Africa. I do think that one of the things in South Africa for the next year is going to be what is the situation around the current government of national unity, as it's called. Now, many people have come out and said that it's not a government of national unity. This is basically a coalition, because government of national unity includes everybody, and this coalition does not. That being said, the coalition is facing a number of key points of stress. I think the most recent one is the Bella Bill, which is the Basic Education Bill. But there's also the NHI, National Health Insurance. There's also a number of other things around BE and other factors of appointments and so on that are areas of contention between the ANC and the DA, which are basically the two parties that form off this government of national unity. Yes, there's other parties involved here, but the main deal is between the DA and the ANC. And I think that we're probably going to last this year, but there's going to be a significant amount of pressure on this particular alliance, and it will definitely not last until the next election, which would be, I think, quite negative for the currency. We've already seen the rand weaken over the last month or so. We once were approaching about $19 to the US dollar. I do think that is not going to blow out immediately unless there's a change in event happening. But I do think that hopes for the GNU lasting and making serious differences in the country going forward should be tempered, because of the fact that I don't think it's going to last multiple years after this year. And then finally, looking at what's happening with AI. AI is a huge area of interest for me. We're going to get the first new models coming out in the next month or two. The first one likely to come out is going to be Grok. Elon Musk has already talked about the next 4 weeks or so. Look, Elon Musk has often put some very aggressive timelines in place, so we can't really trust whether or not we're going to get a Grok 3 in the next few months. But we're likely to get that before the end of the first half of the year. We are likely to get something from OpenAI. These old models that they're putting out are a significant step change. Even people that are critical of AI's progress say it's a significant step change for the technology. It's able to solve the kinds of problems that have never been solved in the past by AI. And we also do expect, going forward, more developments from the Chinese. Whether or not the Chinese developments can basically, go on past this point, when the new, hardware systems come into place from NVIDIA, etc., I'm not sure. But it must be pointed out that they have created a new LLM model recently that they claim was trained for $6.5 million, not billion, but $6.5 million, that rivals, GPT-4, etc. Funnily enough, it also thinks it's GPT-4. So if you ask the model, who are you? It says, I am GPT-4. This obviously indicates that the Chinese have used some kind of underhanded means, possibly copying the weights of GPT-4 to create their model. But it does indicate that we are seeing, the Chinese at this moment catching up, or at least maintaining with what the US is. The big question going forward from here is going to be, are they going to be able to continue that after the new chips come into place and they're not going to be accessing these new chips? And are they going to be able to proceed as well once we start to see more and more models basically being closed? I don't know how many more models we'll get from Meta, these Llama models that are going to be given out to the public, but I doubt it's going to be done indefinitely going forward. We're already starting to see signs that these models are posing dangers, including a recent terrorist attack where a Cybertruck was exploded in front of one of Trump's buildings. The person that did it apparently asked GPT-4 for assistance in planning the attack. And if we see these models increase in capacity, as we have seen them in the past, there's no way you can hand an open model to the world that has the ability to create new forms of poisons or plan things like terrorist attacks. You want them to be closed. You want them to have to be accessed via your particular servers, etc. So you can spot if there is any kind of nefarious demand or any kind of issues that are being basically asked of it that you don't want it to answer. How to create a bomb, how to do this terrorist attack, how to maximize the effect of a certain terrorist attack, etc. And I don't think that's going to be something that is far out of the ability of these models to answer for very long. If not, it's already in their capacity to answer them right now. Like I said, we've already seen a terrorist attack where the terrorist, did basically, or there's been evidence that they did ask GPT-4 to assist them in that attack. Then the next thing is going to be, are we going to see a change in how these models work going forward? We've come to a point now where data has kind of run out in terms of LLMs. Is it possible for LLMs to continue going forward with more computing power, more train time, if they don't have much more data? The data that they have is basically the entire internet. And that, like I said, has to a certain extent been used up. There's more data out there, things like video, etc., but those are not for the LLM models, they're for different kinds of models. And we, I think, are going to be seeing these different kinds of models come out this year, most notably around robotics. For those of you that have not seen it, there's a thing called the Unitree 2, which is a robotic dog that you can buy for under 50,000 rands. About 47,000 rands, you can buy this dog. It can have wheels on it, it can walk up and down stairs, it can answer with associations with some LLM models, it can answer questions, you can basically command it by voice to do certain things. And like I said, under 50,000 rands. And this is just a first, foray of these companies into this particular field. I think we are going to see these costs come down. I will see capacity increase. And I had, like I said in the past, of the belief that robots, once the AI systems are in place to basically run them, are going to cost significantly less than a car. The simple fact of the matter is that a car is much less powerful, a robot is much less powerful than a car, uses much less material. If you're building physical that's basically doesn't require as much strength and material, in all likelihood you can build it cheaper. And therefore we are going to see these robots come into play, and for tens of thousands of rands, probably under the 50,000 rand mark, even for the humanoid robots, even though they're not available right now, but even for humanoid robots, you're likely to see them significantly before 50,000 rands per model. Okay, and I think this is the year in which we start to see that. The other trend we are starting to see come about is agentic AI. This is AI where you can ask it to do something like a task, and it'll do the whole task, planning the task, etc. for you. So you could ask an AI system, for instance, my kid's having a third birthday party. I want a unicorn themed party. Find someone around here that I can basically book it at. Give me a quotation for like 3 of these places, and it'll do it for you, the whole thing. This sort of agentic AI stuff is, I think, along with things like full self-driving and robotics, the next frontier of AI models. And we already started to see the last models, the LLMs, etc., starting to have significant economic impact. We've seen at least a couple of companies out there, companies as large as Salesforce, for instance, saying that they're not hiring new people. Why? Because they don't need new people, because if they wanted to have more capacity, all they got to do is apply AI to their current workforce. And that is, I think, a sea change that is going to be coming into more and more industries over the next couple of years. We're likely to start seeing the first indications that AI is cutting employment. We're likely to see the first indications that AI is boosting GDP growth. And one of the predictions I'm going to make for you right now, and you can probably hold this over the next 5 years, which is a 5-year prediction, not a 1-year prediction, but a 5-year prediction. We're going to see 5-6+% growth rates in the US in a year before the year 2030. That is a significant jump up in terms of US GDP growth, doubling basically what the current is, in fact more than doubling if it's about 6%. This is something that we have not seen for a long time in the US, outside, for instance, recoveries from COVID, etc. So, like I said, 5+% GDP growth before 2030. That is a pretty strong call, but I think if these technologies do progress as I think they are, it might even be a conservative call. Okay, that's it for this week. Thanks for joining me, and I look forward to speaking to you guys again next week. Cheers.